It is often said that Chinese foreign policy is hyper-aggressive, but that is not entirely true. Along with hyper-aggression, they have amalgamated passive aggression in their policy. Passive-aggressive people are those who will kick you but start playing victim when you retort. "Oh, don't hit me in the head," they will say while having a knife in their hand. Hi and welcome to TFI English, the national socio-political analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Piyush, and if you are watching us on Facebook, give our page a like, and if you are watching us on YouTube, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Coming back to the story, in this video I am here to tell you how India thrashed Chinese left, right and center. So let's begin. Recently, India took on the Chinese propaganda machine head on. China tried to term India as colonizers of Sri Lanka. Firstly, Qi Zhenghong, China's envoy to Colombo, endorsed an article claiming that India colonized Sri Lanka for 17 times in its history. The article did not cite any historic agreement, any historic book, or any anthropological evidence for that matter, given the fact that he is representing a communist regime that is expected from him. Due to lack of evidence, the article would have died an intellectual death. The Chinese knew it, and so they started pushing misinformation on the state-owned platforms. The baseless anti-truth allegation was pushed by a Twitter account of Chinese embassy in Sri Lanka as well. Then Global Times, CCP Todi jumped in and pushed the narrative a bit more by citing its envoy in Sri Lanka. China was specifically angry about India's response to a docking of Chinese spy ship vessel on Hambantota port. India had responded fiercely to the news, and Chinese ship had to make a delayed landing at the port. The Chinese tried to portray India's attempt to protect its national interest as harming Lanka's sovereign status as a country. The campaign was big, and looking at the history of Chinese aggression, it was imminent to counter it, especially since there is a pro-India wave in Sri Lanka. The Indian ambassador to Sri Lanka, YK Sinha, did not waste any time. Through a series of tweets of Indian embassy in Sri Lanka, the ambassador categorically stated that the Chinese ambassador had violated basic diplomatic etiquette. The embassy said that it may be an aberration from normal on the part of Chinese envoy. However, the Indian embassy also hinted that Chinese diplomat is following his national attitude. The Indian embassy expressly stated that it is China which is involved in colonization and border offense, not India. It was possibly aimed towards China treating Taiwan as its colony. Indian embassy tweeted, "His view of Sri Lanka's northern neighbor may be colored by how his own country behaves. India, we assure him, is very different." India then took on China's debt trap diplomacy, stating that Sri Lanka needs support, and now browbeating, the Indian ambassador said, "Opaqueness and debt-driven agendas are now a major challenge, especially for smaller nations. Recent developments are a caution. Sri Lanka needs support, not unwanted pressure or unnecessary controversies to serve another country's agenda." The tweet thread was an apt move by the Indian envoy. The Chinese are literally flabbergasted by how India responded to their territorial aggression. Earlier, they tried to mellow down their response as finally they had got their way, even though it was late. However, reports came out that India had tried their ship's spyware circuits. Obviously, China could not state that wide open since it would expose the hollowness of Chinese claims that their vessel was designed to conduct scientific research. So they chose this path. The very fact that the campaign started a week after the Chinese vessel left Hambantota is evidence that China meticulously planned this as the part of their so-called wolf warrior diplomacy. India has been proactive in countering this style of diplomacy, especially after the Galwan Valley attack. Now the war is being fought in neutral locations.